I had trouble having a document open on 2 screens, so I'm not sure how. Chase these.
Can you put your hand on the left part of the table just to make sure? Okay. Just put your hand right there.
Wow. Never asked that before.
I can't believe you did that. It was just a test to see if you would do that.
I'll be just live. I'll shoot maybe.
Gotcha. I think we don't, is YouTube a secondary feature? Zoom is running. We're good? Okay. It's 6:04. We'll call this meeting to order. Gail, can we have a roll call? Sure. Tyler?
Here.
Jeff?
Yep.
John?
Here.
Deb? Here. And Andrew?
Here.
All present? All right. We'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Seconded by John. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We will proceed. Looks like we have the first on the agenda is public forum, and we have one person, Grace Nelson from Kids Club, is going to present, and I believe she is on via Zoom. So, Grace, we will yield the floor to you.
Awesome. Hi, my name is Grace Nelson. I'm the Gilbert 3-6 site supervisor for the Kids Club program through ISS, and we serve 3rd through 6th graders over at the intermediate school.
And my name is Juliana. I am the supervisor at the elementary school, and we serve K through 2 there.
So October is Lights On month, where after school programs are highlighted and honored. And in the past, we have offered an open house to all of the families and faculty that we serve at the Gilbert Intermediate School. And that's where we have kind of food and games and a fun time for just all of the families to come and be together and to showcase what we do at Kids Club in a safe way. So
unfortunately, because of COVID, we obviously cannot have an open house. So this year we've created a safer event. We will be providing a family fun bag for each Kids Club family to take home. This will be on Wednesday, October 22nd. The bag includes a free Blaze pizza coupon, Hy-Vee cookies, some family fun activities like family bingo, word searches, things like that. It'll include like movie snacks for a family movie night. And then I'll also have a link to a video that we're putting together to kind of showcase Kids Club and what we do here.
Yeah, so that video is going to showcase all 9 of our Kids Club sites. We've actually expanded to South Hamilton, Iowa State, and Madrid. And that's going to kind of showcase what we do on a daily basis and show some snippets of how Kids Club has impacted families and the faculty that we serve. Our video is going to be posted on all of our social media outlets, so on our yss.org website, along with our YSS and YSS Kids Club Facebook pages. And we were also planning to email it to all of the teachers and staff that are on the online directory so that you have access to that as well. So we highly encourage you to go see that on Wednesday, October 21st, and spread the word about our program. We do have some special appearances from our wonderful intermediate principal and some of the Kids Club kids that we serve on what they love about Kids Club. So it's kind of worth a watch.
Great. Thank you
Do
so
you
much.
have any questions at all for us at this time?
No questions. Great job at adjusting and still bringing something cool to the parents and families of Kids Club. So thank you very much for thinking of that.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we will move on to the next item, which is oral reports. And the first item is it's under COVID-19 updates, but it's the sustainability plan. And I believe Lindsay and Carrie, are you gonna drive this? Okay.
Okay, so Gail's got our presentation right there. And so I think first off, it's important to know that our remote learning is our hybrid model. And we are in that until we do not have any remote learners, and it's a parent choice. And right now we are set through January 19th. I wish I had a crystal ball. Boy, if I did, I bet I could make some money right now on what's it gonna look like on January 19th. You know, I mean, we don't know. You all have had access to, you know, what has our absentee rate been, what was it last year compared to what this year? And actually, we're holding pretty steady, you know, I mean, it's not, and I think people have been, at least I've noticed there's lots of people on the dashboard, viewing the dashboard that we put up every weekday to update on our positivity numbers, quarantining, and that kind of thing. But moving forward, I think that there is, you know, we're trying to guess what could possibly happen. But we do have numbers to support where we've been. So you can see that in September, where we were at a total of 268 remote learners, which, and you can also see the building breakdown there as well. We were at a high of 16.4% of our students who were remote learners in September. Now, you can see, and this is updated as of today, we are at 193 students across the district. Where that little +2 at the bottom is, we also have 2 of our homeschool students that are dual enrolled for band. So they're also part of a remote learning family, but we wanted to make sure that you knew that.
Hey, Carrie, sorry to interrupt, but can we, I don't think anybody on Zoom can see the presentation, or can you, Ashley or Amy or Cindy, can you guys mic?
Can you see it? Okay. Will that work?
I don't think.
Can you pick it up now?
Just a sec, we're working on that right now, Tyler. Thank you very much.
Is it in our board packet?
No, it's not.
No, we did not put it in the board packet.
Jason, if you want to make me the host, I can share my screen.
Oh, that'd be awesome, Amy. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Carrie. We just.
Okay, well, I'm glad you brought that up now. Okay, so there it is. All right, so you can see right there. You can, oh, so can we go to the next one? Next slide, Amy. and now I'm gonna have to go Amy and Gail. So we are at 75 students came back on site after October 5th. And we had a few that maybe came in a week later, but we are working with families on what's work, because we want to do what's best for kids. Now, that doesn't mean we are an open door that you just come in and out whenever you want, but there have been some extenuating circumstances for some families that we have worked through. Next, oh, Amy, next slide. Yeah, I need to pay attention.
I think Tyler was just wanting to catch up on this slide, so I was just waiting.
We're good. Thank you. I got it. Thanks.
Okay, so that one, yeah, there we are. Perfect. Thank you. So as of now, our total enrollment is 1,633 students. We wanted to point out our homeschool percentage is 1.77. Not that I think it's important to know that that is just a teeny bit higher than where it maybe it usually is. And we've seen a teeny uptick at the elementary, maybe elementary intermediate level. And really the reasoning behind that is we've got a few families that have a stay-at-home parent that's a certified teacher. And their reasoning to us was, if they can help us in the number of kids that to decrease a few more numbers in the buildings, they're happy to do that for the year. But the plan would be that those kids would come back. Now our remote learner number is 11.82%. So you can see we came down, I mean, almost 5 percentage points from where we were at the heights. Next slide. Amy and, oh, next slide, Amy. Okay, this one, Amy, just an FYI, every time you hit it, it's going to be one of my points. And I'm just doing a quick overview, and then we'll go into those on the next slide. All right, so sustainability. We've got 4 things that we want to just get down into. First is remote Wednesdays. We feel that this is a must. 2 is a consistent message, the rigor and the expectations for both teachers and families. 3, the support for our at-risk students and what can that look like? What would we like that to look like now? And then time. How do we can't create time, but from knowing from what our teachers are telling us, time is a factor. So we will start with remote Wednesday. All right. A recommendation that we are making through the completion of remote learning is we really need to keep the remote Wednesdays. If you, for a multitude of reasons. 1, this is used for planning time that was taken away from some of our buildings. For example, at the elementary level, instead of having a 50-minute planning time when the kids were at their went to specials like PE, music, art, they now are down to 35 minutes. And that is due to COVID mitigation issues, cleaning and that kind of thing. In between the time that kids go to a special, they needed that extra time. And they can't start specials until 1 o'clock because of lunch. They have to have more room in the lunchroom, or they spread their kids out. And to have PE, they've got to have cleaning time to clean up from lunch. So they are actually starting their specials about 35 minutes later than what they have in the past. So that's one thing. Another thing is PLC meeting times that usually happen across the district on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday are not, because the planning time has changed now. So those things are occurring on Wednesdays. There's specialized cleaning that's happening. There's remote learning contact time that's happening on Wednesdays. Those are just to name a few other things. So the teacher survey data supports the use of the remote learning Wednesday time. And the top 3 successes that were reported on that survey were: 1, preparing for remote learners. They need that time to do that because that looks different. 2, providing feedback to students. It just takes more time. 3, engaging our remote learners. They felt good about those 3 things, but they need time to do those 3 things. So when the question is asked, we really feel that remote learning and remote Wednesdays go hand in hand. The second piece to this, number 2, is a consistent message. What is our message? Some people, I hope nobody's saying that, but some people could be saying that. I don't know. Remote learning should be as rigorous as on-site learning. That's part of our return to learn plan, and it has to be part of the return to learn plan. Our remote and on-site students should be within a few days of each other in the learning cycle. So if I'm on site and I'm learning about cells, I should be approximately around that same time if I'm a remote learner. I could be a few days here or there, but we don't want it to be extreme amounts of time, because there's going to come a day when our remote students and our on-site students are going to be together. And what we do not want to do is create an unintentional learning gap due to that. So that's one of those. That's one of the things we have to consider. There have been questions on how we are making it clear the expectations of teachers, parents, and students who are doing remote learning. Each building administrator has been responsible for that communication with their prospective buildings. District expectations, we've worked those district expectations out administratively through our administrative meeting time. From there, then they are then the building principal, because there's nuances across each building. For example, there is an expectation that all students will have virtual face-to-face contact with every teacher at least once a week. Now, we know at the elementary level, we have a dedicated virtual teacher. So those teachers are Zooming with those kids twice a day because it's very synchronous. Whereas in other buildings, it's harder to do that synchronously. But if I'm in an intermediate building and I'm working with 3 teachers, I'm going to have at least 1 Zoom with each of them a week, if not 2. So I'm still having it's not that I'm only Zooming twice, I'm probably Zooming 6 times a week, but it might not always be with the same adult or the same teacher, it depends on it, and the teachers have to synchronize that so that they're not doing it at the same time and those kinds of things. So that's another thing. They're also, another expectation is the posting of when should the work be posted. We have said that we wanted the work for the beginning of the week to be posted on Monday by 8 o'clock in the morning, and on Wednesdays, Thursday, and Friday will be posted. So we're not posting the whole week because we know good teaching is focused around where are our students at in their learning. If we just put the whole unit on there, I don't know that what I want my kids to do Thursday, how did they do on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? So you want to take into real time into consideration where your kids are in their learning. So we kind of try to find a happy medium. But the rest of those nuances are going to come from the building principal. And then they're going to talk to they're going to work together with their teachers on it, because it's not about top down, it's about what's best for kids on them. When we looked at the teacher data that was sent out, I think was in the board packet, one of the things that did come out to us was, okay, how have we laid out the expectations for parents? And I think that this has been a learning curve. I'm not trying, I don't mean this, but it is a learning curve. When kids go to school and you have an open, I mean, when they come to on-site school, like we've done how many years, we've all been part of school. The expectation is kids get on the bus or drive to school or whatever, they come, they sit, and they're going to attend and they're going to engage. Well, when we started remote, the assumption was, well, they'll just do it that way. We've now learned that that engagement piece is a struggle for some students. So we got to take a step back a little bit and see, okay, what do we need to do for students that are struggling with that engagement piece online, for whatever reason that they are online? And so that is the next thing we're going to talk about, support for at-risk students. Now, there have been some discussions on outsourcing of curriculum and work to a third party. We want to real quick just give you a big bird's eye view of what that could look like. We have Edgenuity as a company that the district has worked with in the past. And what that is you buy a seat. So the middle school is gonna buy a seat for $400 per seat. But that doesn't mean only one person can sit in that seat. That means I can sell the seat I'm in for $400. And I could as a district, every hour, I could put somebody different in that seat. Okay, so but Andrew and I, for example, we couldn't sit in the seat at the same time. So there's some nuance, how you're gonna work through that. You gotta make sure that two people aren't on at the same time, but you could sit, a number of kids in that seat. Now, the thing with that is, we still, in any program that we would purchase, if we would decide to do an outsourcing, we're still going to have work on our end, unless we're going to spend quite a bit more money per kid, because we're going to have to go through their curriculum and we're going to have to pick out what do we want the kids to do and what do we not want them to do. We're also going to have to monitor how the kids are working through that curriculum. We can set it up multiple ways. You can set it up to only work X amount of time. Like you can't just like if it's self-paced, you can't just, we don't want to just, run through it. Or do we want to say, okay, we want unit 1, lesson 1 through 5 are going to be Monday through Friday or whatever. And then you have to turn the assessments on if the kids go through the assessment too fast and they don't do well, it'll lock them out of it. Then you have to reset it. So there's somebody who has to be monitoring that. That's Edgenuity. The other one is called Edmentum. It's very similar in the parts and pieces that I just told you about. The pricing is much different. You're paying per seat for that. but you're just paying for the platform and the curriculum. You're paying approximately $47 a kid. But in that, what you're getting is you're getting your core curriculum, which is your math, science, social studies, and reading language arts, of their curriculum. You're not going to get electives or anything like that. You're just going to get the core. You can buy some of those other things, but it's extra money, which that's the way you decided. I'm not saying you can't do this one. That's an extra part, a piece to that. If you wanted to use Edmentum as the teacher and the everything, and we just kind of backed out of it, it's $2,000 a student. If we didn't, if we are going to play a part in that, and we're going to have to monitor on that, and it's just the platform, and that's $47 for the core subject areas. Now, if you go with the idea of having the teachers just, just put it in the program, that takes 4 to 6 weeks to be part of. If we were going to do it where we are managing it, we can do that quicker, but we've got to train people in that as well. Because somebody's got to go in and do the picking of the units, and then we've got to have people monitoring it. And I'll get to the monitoring part next. So,
Carrie, question for you.
Yes.
Before we do. So would this just be strictly for at-risk students, or
that's kind of where we're going. That's a good question, John, and I'll skip to this part right now. What we're finding is there's kids that are being very successful remotely. And would we want to just pull them out of it? Because if you look at the data from the teachers, what is the breaking point of teachers? It's all the emails and the phone calls and of the people that are not engaging. It's all the follow-up for our struggling students. It's not that they don't want to do that. It's just we're trying to make it 2 jobs. I think we said that in August at the very beginning of this. That how do you manage doing this? And after I've gone through this, we'll look at the numbers so you'll see where the numbers are exactly in each building per grade level, how many kids we have across the board. But I wanted to just give this background first. So should that third party be something we think about for those struggling kids that are choosing not to engage at all, for whatever reason that would be? Well, the discussion that we have had is, okay, what do we do for our strugglers that are on site? What have we historically done for those kids? We do lots, and our teachers work so hard, and they do so many great things for kids, things that they don't even think about. They are going to, we have academic study halls. We have a check-in and check-out with certain adults in the buildings. We have extra time with teacher at the teacher's table. We have differentiation that happens as you're actually in the midst of your teaching. You're going to know that you need to ask this question to this kid because of where they're going, and you're going to come back and restate something for this kid over here because they're like, oh, I can just tell I need that person needs a little bit more, so I'm going to have close proximity. All of those things happen in the classroom. Teachers are doing those constant decisions throughout the day of their teaching. When you're remotely, it's different. So I think it's like, well, how do you do? Oh my gosh, how do we? How are we reaching out? So what do we do? They're reaching out through Zooms, they're reaching out through emails, they're reaching out through phone calls, they're doing those things. But what we know is some kids need more, just like we know some kids need more in the classroom. So how do we do more with no extra time, with trying to juggle 2 things? So one of the things that we're going to propose, that we're proposing, and that our building principals are actually working on right now, is that having, for our learners that are struggling with assignments or attendance, assigning a specific point person to check in with them. And that check-in could be daily. And that check-in is not around content. It's really around what kind of plan. Okay, let's come up with an action plan of how we're going to tackle this. Because we've all been, well, I shouldn't say we've all. Some of us have been in a situation where you're like, I don't even know where to start. I don't even know. I mean, if some of you have done online classes, and it's hard, it's much different than being face-to-face. you have to take on a lot more responsibility as the learner. And rightly or wrongly, there's some people, whether you're students or adults, that doesn't come as easy to. So how can we support those kids? Because if you look at what our teachers are doing, the thing that is bogging them down, not that they don't want to reach out to those kids, because they want to talk, they're going to reach out with the feedback on content, but it's that engagement piece. If someone is struggling and doesn't know how to engage or doesn't know how to reach out. So at school, I said earlier, we have that built in. We have academic study hall, we have check in and check out, we have extra teacher table support. How can we offer that extra support to our online or our remote students? So thinking of that point person that will be that daily contact with that student. So it's not just somebody calling somebody's parent hammering, why aren't they engaged? Why aren't they doing this? Let's see if we can get to the root of what that issue is. So that's that piece of that support for our remote learners. Now, let's say that we can, so our building principals right now are working, they're looking, who do we have? Do we have people on site in each building that could do this? Now, I will tell you, the elementary being in a little different situation with teachers that are specified for remote learners. Stacy felt that they're okay where they are right now. But the other buildings, since you don't have a very specific online remote teacher, that maybe that point person would be that good support for those kids. So they're looking, do we have somebody on staff, or do we need to think about hiring somebody that could be that constant contact for those kids? So that's one of the things that we're thinking about. Now, if that point person, if we do not see change in that support, the next student, or if we do not see change from the support that we could offer, that we could do, maybe then we do look at that third party option for those kids. That would be, they still have this check-in person because we got to have somebody monitoring that, but maybe they need that, they just need different. We don't know, but that is an option we could have. I mean, we narrowed it down to saying at the elementary, we have 2 students that we would say are those strugglers that are not engaging. At the intermediate, there's about 6. At the middle school, there's 4, and at high school, there's 12. So that's that, because if you think about it, we talk about this in our multi-tiered systems of support that we offer kids. Okay, if the group here, if they need more, we tier it up. Then we have to tier it up again. We have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Well, we need to do that same thing for our remote students as well. It just might look different. So now we're talking about a tier 2, which could be that person to help with that support. The last thing, and then we're going to show you numbers. The last thing we have to talk about real quick is time. We cannot create, I wish I could create more time. I wish I could. I'd like to have more time myself. But we can look at how we are using time. We are not going to be adding anything. We do not want to add anything extra to the plate of our teachers. Now, we do have a remote learning PD that we are required to do by the state, and that PD it should be offering some support in ways to engage students. That's what it's centered around. It's all centered around remote learning. But, and the only other thing we have is at the elementary and intermediate, we have a little bit of math PD, which we have totally scaled back. And having adopted a new curriculum, we would be doing a disservice if we didn't do it, but we're really trying to figure out how to do that with their goals. And I think hindsight is always 20. I mean, if we would have been able to predict that this was going to happen, we probably would have maybe made a different decision on when we started this math, but it is what it is. I mean, yeah, that's all I can say. It is what it is. So those are our 4 main points. Now I want to real quick, this is a great time because we're going to look at each building's data. So individual building data was asked for. So we have broken that data down by building. We have data on how many remote learners each grade level has, how many teachers are dedicated to remote learning, how many on-site learners are at that grade level, and how many on-site sections there are in individual classrooms due to mitigation, and how does remote change what happens on-site. So the first one we're going to take a look at is elementary. And you can see here, we've got preschool, K-prep, kindergarten, first grade, and second grade. I don't have to read it to everybody, but you can see what the data looks like. And that's current data. This is not like, this is as of today. So you can see kind of what that looks like. I guess after thinking about what we talked about, this to me is the time for each building to have those conversations around the questions that you all have and anything that the building principals would like to share as well.
This is really good, Carrie. Thank you for all the previous information and then this information specific to elementary. So I don't know if Stacy's on but I mean, would we say that this is working well? And I was just curious whether the feedback was similar for the teachers in the elementary as for the rest of the survey. But I mean, the numbers here seem to be pretty well balanced, and 4 sections of in-person and essentially 1 smaller section of remote for each grade, it looks like.
Now, one thing, and I know Stacey's not on right now, but Ashley is, and I know that Ashley and Stacey have been meeting on this. So if you have anything to add, Ashley, please feel free to do so. One thing I will say that the elementary is got in the back of their mind is, you can, for example, if you look at second grade, you'll see there's 8 remote learners, and the individual class sections are between 22 and 23. This is where it gets tricky, and it gets tricky this way across the district, because with the mitigation that we're doing, how many more people can go into a classroom to hold, and then to be able to hold a remote, have a teacher designated just for remote learning at that grade level. So I know that each building, since there's nuances across buildings, I know that Stacy has said that, she at second grade, she's kind of about at that tipping point right now with that 8. So then the question is, what do we do if we have more kids that want to go out? Now, for example, at first grade, we had, I want to say, was it 1 or 2 students, Lindsay, that were new, but they were on site. So that added another nuance to the numbers. So Ashley, would you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, Carrie, that's what I was going to say. To speak exactly to that point, we've gone through and looked at each grade level of how many students that we have space available for the return with mitigation as it stands now with the 3 feet. We have room for all of our preschoolers to come back. K-prep, we have all of our K-preppers back now, but let's say there was 2, we have room for 2 more students in that room. So if there were 2 move-ins, kindergarten, we have space for all 11 to return. First grade, we have space for 5 to return to sustain the 4 sections with the 3 feet mitigation. And second grade, we have room for 1. So some things that we've talked about that, the 3 feet social distancing obviously impacts the number of students that can be in the classroom, as well as furniture. We have kiddos right now in individual desks in second grade, and in first grade, we have several sections that had double desks and some that were at single desks. So if we got the double desks with the plexi, then we can get a few more students in there as well. Just trying to build that consistency throughout, whether it be online or in person, to have kids in and out. Carrie gave the numbers before, and we had 68 or excuse me, 69 students that began the year remote. And then we've served 19 kiddos in quarantine situations from the beginning of the year till now. So our remote teachers have yet to have a week where their rosters stayed the same. So it's not always the same, obviously on-site teachers, but that ebb and flow of how we do things and that consistency piece has definitely been a factor in this as well. Carrie, I'm not sure, thinking about those possible changes, do you want me to speak to our ideas about considerations now, or did you want me to wait?
No, I think go ahead. I think let's go ahead now. And say
Okay.
what you're relevant.
Yep. So as you know, we have one dedicated remote teacher, kindergarten, first grade, and second grade. And then our preschool teachers partner, and they serve the remote students, and we don't have the need for the K-Prep remote right now. But one of our considerations, if fewer kids were to go remote, would be to move to maybe one dedicated remote teacher that served K2, possibly a multi-grade scenario. Another thought that we had just in our brainstorming was to compensate our existing part-time staff when they're providing remote learning. I already spoke briefly about possibly purchasing those double desks and thinking about that. The other thing would be to consider our mitigation. Right now we have the 3 feet or the plexi. Maybe if it's that we have individual desks in second grade, that it's not 3 feet, but if everybody had their individual desk and they were at 2 feet, then could we put a few more kids in there, or what our stance would be? As you know, our kindergarten isn't using tables, they're using lap desks. So when would we bring those tables back, and when we have plexi on the tables, things like that. As Carrie spoke to earlier, the Wednesdays are vital with that planning time getting reduced from 50 minutes a day down to 30. If those Wednesdays were to go away, we would need to reconsider how we're serving lunch, because we're using the gym space right now, and we're able to split the grade levels into the 2 locations. Whereas if we lost the Wednesdays, we would need to revisit our lunch schedule and our special schedule. We've also thought about some considerations if the number of our remote kids went up. You know, would we have it be same? Would we compensate some of our part-time staff to provide that remote learning if the need were there? Would we transition another one of our on-site staff members to be an additional section of remote, possibly multi-grade, to go to remote teaching? And another thing to consider would be, as our numbers, if they were to rise above 25 students, consider a stipend for those teachers that have over 25 students in their class, as they'd be providing more Zoom times, and how that would all fit in there as well.
One thing I'll add to that, I think when you say that, Ashley, it's important to know that our elementary teachers are providing every subject. It's not specific to, you know, a content area or something, so.
I have a question, Carrie. So, first of all of these different ideas sounds great. Like there's lots of different ways you could decide to go about making changes should they be necessary. But when you talk about, I'm not so much concerned about remote learners, be fewer of them. But if that were to creep up, do you have, like, I think I talked about this to you, like tipping points? Like, how do you know when it's too much and you're asking too much of the teachers to maintain this model? And what's going to be your indicators that say, "Oop, switch, we need another"?
I think that Ashley picked one earlier when she said, you know, that 25 is 25 as remote learners. Is that too much, especially when you're talking at the elementary level, when you're managing all subject areas. I'm going to tell you, we don't have a magic number right now, And the other piece is when we had, now the quarantining has gone down greatly with the change from Governor Reynolds. But prior to that, when we had, 70+ quarantine, that was becoming an issue. But I think that part has kind of maintained itself now, or that has helped itself, so we don't have that issue as much. But I think right now at the elementary, we're looking maybe at about 25 being that tipping point. But what the actual answer is after that, I think we're still trying to work through that.
I think I was just.
That's a good question.
My point is just, to the extent possible,
Yeah.
are we looking at leading indicators so that we're not behind it saying, oh boy, this is a horrible situation, let's fix it.
Like we
that
knew
makes sense.
first grade was one of those higher numbers, and the same thing goes for the tipping point at the low end.
Right.
When and that's like Ashley just said, they've got room for, and they're talking on site, 2 more kids with the mitigation the way that we have to do it now. So, any other questions for elementary?
I have one, since I'm the finance guy, this is just a finance perspective, so feel free to pound on me and shoot arrows after this comes out. But my thought process would be, is so this idea is we have shifting people online or in classroom, and it could go both directions. And so I'm thinking to myself, what if we said that we need the minimum number that's in the right-hand column in order to dedicate a teacher to it? So in essence, if we were looking at preschool, we would say, hey, we got 11 preschool kids, we got 11 in the classroom, that's good for a teacher. We go down to kindergarten, we got 11 online. If we were in the classroom, we need 18. Underutilization of resources. Not saying that teacher isn't doing something else, I'm sure they are.
No, I think I totally get where you're.
Yeah, but my thought process, so is the idea is we hire out the 11 for the $2 grand to get the full boat thing. So we pay $22,000 in order for those 11 kindergartners to have online education. We free up the kindergarten year teacher that would have been doing the online, to follow up with all the online, and follow up with all the inline classrooms to do the consistent contact.
Mm-hmm.
So in essence, we're in for 22 grand, but we're not in for, all the other expenses. And so this is just a finance approach. And so you may or may not like it. But the one thing that would allow is it flips at the end of the semester, and now we have 22 kindergartner kids, And so now we still have that teacher. And now we're just going to be like, okay, we're not going to outsource that for the next year, because now we have a teacher dedicated to that. And then that way we always have this level of, we have the staff, and now we have the resources to do the online thing as well. And then what the other thing that does away with is, to the extent of, we don't have a full-time teacher dedicated to it. We don't have teachers with a foot in both camps. I'm not having to figure out all the online stuff. I'm just following up on the online stuff as well as all the rest of the kids in the classroom. And I'm sure there's problems with it, but I do believe that and then what the benefit of that is now we get our Wednesdays back. And so now maybe we can have, because the one thing about taking the Wednesdays off, it's to the detriment of all of the students that are in classroom, and that we've taken away, 8 hours of instruction time from them in order to get all the things that we need to get done because we're online and in the classroom. Now, it might have to be, we can't do the whole day Wednesday, it's just, Wednesday from 8 to 1, and we have early outs like we used to. But I'm just throwing out some random thoughts that are coming to my head as I'm looking at this, and I'm sure there's flaws in it here.
So
Go ahead, Jeff.
So I was gonna wait till we got through it all, but how do we know if we invest in the other third party plan, we're still not gonna have the same problems? Are we taking any sort of survey on what our problems are with the kids? Like, so you said you got 24 kids that aren't doing very well on remote learning. Then is there a common thread out of all those 24 kids of why we're not doing it?
That is what we are in the midst of doing some of that work right now. Because, but I think I want to point one thing out that John said that I didn't really hit on the outsourcing. The outsourcing is would look very different at elementary and intermediate than it would 6 on up. And it's important to know that when you're outsourcing, you're not in our curriculum anymore. And so those kids are going to come back. And I think that I'm going to use our phonics program as a prime example of that. There's a very specific way that we do that. And the kids that go in, if we would do that at the lower elementary, which I think that most people would agree with what I'm gonna say right now, is we are not gonna get the most bang for our buck, and we're gonna create a gap because the way that our kids go through the system is gonna look very different.
So that can be off for the elementary school, and just based on the curriculum.
Based on, that's one of the pieces. Now, is that something that we could talk about as we move forward? Do that. I mean, I don't think there's an option that isn't on the table, but that's just something important for us to know.
But think of it like this, like John said, we're willing to spend the money. So maybe it's not with third party, maybe we hire another teacher for a half year or something like that. I guess from a board's perspective, what John's saying is if we got some kids that aren't making it the right way or doing it, keeping up, we're not opposed to spending the money, we want to spend it the right way. If it's a third party, if it's hiring another teacher part-time, if it's dedicating a teacher, maybe, I don't know what the answer is. That's why we hire you guys.
Well, this was not the situation but you know what, we're working through this.
You didn't have a class on this, huh?
This is not part of my program, but that's okay. We're becoming stronger people because of it.
But great information.
I got a real quick question. I could be wrong with this. Are we required to do remote learning on preschool? Because I heard
No, we are not.
Okay.
I don't know that, no, we are not required, but
But we are, I mean, obviously for everybody else.
we are, because we just felt that we didn't want to do for one, something.
That's fine. I just was curious. That's a big.
And- Go ahead.
Carrie, am I wrong? For kiddos that have a health exception for preschool, I think you are required to do 10 hours a week.
Yes, you are correct on that. Thank you.
We do have a couple kiddos in our remote preschool. Based on,
We ask when people fill out that commitment form, they give a reason, but we don't. It's because of the parent choice. We're not restricting anybody because of their reason. Let's go to the intermediate data.
That's a very.
Nice.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry, just one second. Tyler, I think you have one. Go ahead first.
Well, this probably transitions into the intermediate, but Ashley, you mentioned multi-grade virtual teacher. Just wondering how feasible that is for elementary or intermediate, or for that matter, any of the grades. I mean, how broad of a grade coverage could a teacher cover and feel comfortable? Any comments there, whether that's elementary, intermediate, or above?
I'm going to say something real quick, and then anybody else that wants to come after would be more than welcome to. There's a couple different ways you could answer that question, Tyler. One, you could go by their licensure. And for example, my license, I think, is K8 or K6. So I could do that, but does that mean that I would feel comfortable doing that? Does that mean, and so some schools, I'll use Nevada as an example, they do some multi-age rooms where they have a mixture of like first, second, third, fourth together. But could we do it? Yes. Would it take some, looking for the right person to do that would feel comfortable with it? That as well. And I don't know if anybody else has anything to add to that either.
What does the department have to say about it?
Oh, they're going to say what I just said. If
The
you're licensed to do it. I mean, they speaking of that, Jeff, I mean, the Department of Ed is changing up the substitute authorization. I mean,
You can say.
a pre-service teacher now can stop. A student teacher, if we need the cooperating teacher, the student teacher can stop now, which you weren't supposed to do in the past. So they're really opening that up quite a bit.
My quick question, and it probably applies throughout. When you were saying, like, you're talking to the people, to the students who are maybe less engaged and trying to find out why. So depending on those answers, there's going to be certain circumstances where that Edgenuity or the other program might be a perfect fit.
Yeah.
And so I imagine this is a here, and here, and not here. You can kind of plug and play and insert as many of that as you need. Is that correct?
I would agree. I think that once again, you want to do what's right. I mean,
It's
our
not a
vision
one-size-fits-all.
is every student every day. And we don't want that to just be for on-site learners only.
Okay. But
That
you
needs to be
can,
for all learners.
you can,
Yeah.
the same solution won't be for each one.
Perfect. Gail, do you want to go to intermediate? And I think everybody else, Amy, thank you for putting up. Now you can see the intermediate is done a little bit differently. Amy, I will let you speak to this. If there's anything that you wanted to point out.
Really, remote learning is going very well for the most part. We, like it's described there, ghost period, which means we have scheduled the remote learners as a section. And so there's times during the day where that teacher does not have kids in their classroom. And instead, that's when they can meet with small groups or a whole group or do recordings of lessons or planning of lessons and provide feedback. It is tricky because it requires more work than really just that period. So I know our teachers are giving more and are very thankful for that Wednesday. That survey we did, I had almost all very positive responses. And, we asked in that survey, what suggestions do you have to help make this sustainable? And there are a couple that, at this point, we're doing, the best that we can. And my teachers are honestly doing better than the best and very, very fortunate. Now, we've got a handful of kids that fall into that category of that at risk that take quite a bit of time to follow up on, aren't turning in assignments, just really are not engaged. And so really trying to find that next step. And I've had discussions, we've brought kids back to on-site even after the commitment date, just because we felt like it was a better fit for the student. As far as sustainability, I think we can just go with Jeff's suggestion and just hire some more. That actually would maybe just done right now. Let's go ahead and get a motion on that. But in all honesty, I think that would help. When we look at numbers, my 4th and 5th grade are as high as they've been in the 9 years that I've been here. I think one year I maybe had a section or two of 27 at 4th grade, but they're pretty high. I really can't go at 26 would be probably the highest I could get actually to fit in the room, like Ashley said, with that 3 feet. So I'm pretty close there at the 4th and 5th grade. 5th grade, you can see we're high on site and we're high in remote learners. So that's just a bigger class, which then makes it, just yet one more challenge to work through. I am anxious and I even thought today, gosh, I wish I knew what parents were thinking of their remote learners for second semester. Because again, if a lot decide to come back, it's going to take, that's great, we'll figure it out, but it's going to take quite a bit of planning and reorganizing of some homeroom classes. Any questions for me?
I got a quick question, Amy. You mentioned you had some conversations with some parents with regards to some remote learners that maybe you made it sound like almost push them back to the classroom. Can you just real quick, how do those conversations go? And because again, a big piece of, we're having some issues with the kids. Obviously, this is parents' choice, and I'm just curious. The parents are heavily involved with it, especially the younger grades, with their education now. And if we're having problems with the kids, how active are these parents in engaging with you and the staff?
Yeah, and I think some of our parents, Andrew, and obviously the ones that have agreed now to come back, just found out that this was much more involved than they initially thought that it was going to be. And, at our age, while we're trying to teach that independence, especially, our 3rd graders, and even some of our 4th and 5th, there's a lot of independence that needs to happen to be a remote learner. And if you don't have that, then you need to have someone next to you helping you keep engaged and continuing to work and answering questions. And so I think during the conversations that I've had with some parents that now have chosen to come back in the last couple of weeks, it was just an agreement that, hey, let us help and let your child feel, like the successful student that they can be. And as long as there weren't any real underlying health issues, then, obviously I felt better trying to push to get them to come back. But luckily I've had very cooperative parents that agreed that it was going to be best for them to come back.
Just one quick comment and then a question. So I know we talk about this as like not our students, these students is not being engaged. And in reality, we probably don't know the situation for that child. And we talked about this all last spring and summer. We don't know the situation that these families are in. And engaged is the word, it's hard, what other word do you use? But I think we should be mindful that this isn't just choices people are making. They're dealing with some very, very tough situations. And so I appreciate all the extra work that goes into that. My question is just, what about these sub teachers, the 4 permanent subs? How are we using them? Or are they already being used?
They
So
are.
on,
Go ahead, Amy.
we started just last week was the first one that we did this with remote learners for those that did not complete the work from the week prior. I worked with the teachers, they made this list, and then I contacted the parents, and we had them actually come in on Wednesday for a couple hours, and our substitute teacher, Abby Mitchell, has done fantastic work for our teachers and for our kids, worked with those kids, and we spaced them all out in the library to just give them a little more individualized attention, answer questions if there were things that they did not understand. And so this week, the number is less that needed to come in on Wednesday, which was our goal. Still have a handful that just are not getting work done or completed.
But that's written, that substitute, that permanent substitute is being able to be utilized in different ways.
That's a great question.
They're not just in
Yep.
substitute situations.
And we've talked about, depending on the needs in the building, could that person be one of those? Like Amy just talked about, yes. Amy, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
I don't think so at this time, other than we just need to keep talking about, at what point are we going to ask parents to commit? Because there's going to be a lot of planning again. I know I feel like we just went through that process for this time, but like I said, I'm anxious to see those numbers because that's going to take some work if quite a few come back.
And that's something, as we wrap this up, that we're just gonna quickly touch on as to what that should look like. Amy, would you go to the next slide for the middle school?
Tyler, are you okay on there? No questions, right? Okay. It got kind of dark, so I couldn't see you very well.
All right, now this is where, and I will just speak very briefly, and then I'm gonna let Mike tell his story. But you'll see where the 6th grade, and then we change at 7th and 8th grade with that ghost period that's provided. Now, when you asked about licensure and what that looks like, as we get in the upper grades, that changes because we have specialized licenses, and so there's certain things that people can teach and things that people can't teach. So that adds another layer to this, as we look at this. Mike, do you have anything you'd like to speak to?
Well, I would think in addition to that, not only licensure, but just all of their training and experiences in a certain level. And so you wouldn't necessarily want somebody whose entire career was spent teaching math to then all of a sudden be teaching, reading or writing. And so while licensure is an issue, just their overall body of work and experience and expertise all fall into one particular content area once they start specializing, starting in 7th grade. Do you want me to go through the entire slide, Carrie?
No, I think that we understand what the slides are, but I think this is a good time if the board has any questions about how things are going as well.
This is where the numbers are a little more deceiving because like 19 is probably a little bit of time among 6 teachers or whatever, 7 teachers.
But those 19, they have that ghost
They
period.
all have that ghost period.
But when you get to 7th and 8th grade, they do not have that ghost period. Now, Mike, would you take just a minute or two and explain some of how your planning time looks different now?
Yes. So all along, since the middle school's been here, teachers have a planning period built in their day, and then there was a period of their day to meet as teams or departments. And this year, basically, what I've done is for the most part, and I think maybe other buildings have done this too. I'm sure they probably have. So they're not meeting during the day for that second planning period, that team time. And so that's really a planning period for remote learning. And so they have a planning period for on-site learning. They have a planning period for remote learning. And then at the 6th grade, as you see, there is enough kids that we could do a ghost section. 7th and 8th grade, there's not enough kids to do that. well, at 8th grade, at 7th grade, it makes the remaining sections too big. To do that, they'd be all between 30 and 31 kids, which I don't have room for. I can fit 28 and have seating for 28. At 8th grade, it would be possible to do a ghost section just because that grade is smaller. What we would run into though is I have 8th graders who are in pre-algebra, algebra, and geometry, and that makes ghost section pretty complicated to implement when I have actually I have some 8th graders that are in advanced algebra as well. So they're all in 4 different math classes. And it just makes a ghost section pretty tricky to implement.
So this is where, would you say, ingenuity and those
That's where
tools
some
kind
of these
fit in
for-
nicely, would you say?
I think once again, I'm gonna say for certain students, maybe, yes. For our students that are being successful, I don't know. I think that's a conversation that we could definitely have as we look at the second semester. But right now, I think if you look at what our teachers are saying, that, okay, I can do this, but I'm struggling with this. And I hate to say engagement, because what you said is exactly right, Deb. We don't know, but that's where how can we find out what it is? And if we can have someone that's dedicated to that student that could help with that, we could, you know, do a little bit more to figure that out. To take the time to do that. Any questions for Mike about middle school?
Mike, and it'd be the same for Vic and Cindy too, but realizing that there's certification for different curriculum, but I mean, could you have somebody that's just following up with those that are struggling, or just for those that are engaged? I mean, I think I got the number right, but there were 4 that are struggling remote learners in the middle school. So would that have to be somebody that's certified just to stay engaged or make contact?
No. So we right now, you know, the teachers are following up with kids. Mrs. Parker, the school counselor, or I, you know, we're all following up with kids. The 4, basically what we would do, what I would like to do is basically just shift them over into, as you've heard Carrie say, maybe a third party provider. And then Megan Saldana, who's one of my secretaries, actually, we used Edgenuity here at the middle school for a number of years just for this very thing, kids that wouldn't engage in a class. And in my former role as a school counselor here, I often would sit with those kids and help them go through that class. Megan Saldana actually at the time was a person who was in charge of that. And so she just spoke to me today and just said, you know, if you're wanting to go that route, I'd be happy to take that on and oversee that. Also have the floating sub as someone who could take charge of that and be someone that can keep on those 4 kids if we went that route. I did use my, so through some creative scheduling, have used my associates and freed some of them up for different periods of the day. And what they're doing is the teachers have basically shared their Google Classrooms with those associates. Each grade level has one assigned to them. And that associate's going through all of the daily work that they're assigning to remote learners and in a spreadsheet marking if they've turned it in or not. They're not correcting it. They're not checking the work, but they are just letting the teacher know. And so the teacher can look at the spreadsheet, could sort it by the yeses or nos, and then email the kids that haven't turned it in. So just a way to make it as easy as I can. So that was something that we did just to reduce the workload a little bit. With the remote learners, all remote learners, but Tyler, to your question, with the 4, yes, anybody could oversee that.
So those activities, I'm just looking back at the survey and then we can move on, but following up when students are not engaged, support struggling remote students, and engaging learners remotely are the top 3 challenges. It sounds like those things you're already doing sort of addresses that.
We're trying to best that we can.
Yeah. With other resources, not just the credentialed teacher for that particular.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Any other middle school questions? I think we're ready to go to the next slide, Amy, which is high school. As you can see, the numbers are pretty close to each other on the remote learners at each grade level. Now you got to remember, when we're looking at grade levels at high school, it's very different because, and then you'll see the on-site sections. This is just core classes and what that section approximately is, because I didn't look at electives or fine arts, anything like that. This is so, because it just is different at high school. And I mean, we seem to say that a lot. So I'm going to turn this over because I know Vic and Cindy are here. So one of them, if you have questions for them or anything that you would like them to speak about, please do so.
Well, I would say a couple things. I would piggyback off of some of the things that Mike said. Is licensure is an issue for us, of course, with the highly certified in the areas. So I think to what Tyler mentioned, we have already been doing those things. We have a half-time English teacher that we've added 4 hours of her day. She was doing some study hall supervision, and now she's just doing nothing but checking in with those dozen kids that are struggling. That's all she does all afternoon. And we also have an academic study hall that works with our kids that are struggling here during the week, and we're paying her to come in on Wednesdays. And she has hour slots on Wednesdays where the kids actually come in, and she helps to kind of get them back on track for those remote learners that are struggling. Cindy has done a nice job of managing our remote learners that are struggling by calling in their families. We've had individual sit downs with almost every family that is kind of struggling to try to figure out what is the issue. Is it internet? What is it? And sitting down and trying to just hammer out what is the issue? What is the obstacle that's preventing you? Because 90% of our kids are doing an outstanding job. I mean, they're really engaging. They're doing an awesome job. It's just this 10%, some of them would be struggling with when they were with us. And so this has just magnified the struggles that some of them have. I feel a little bit like, we're dragging them up to the edge of the water and doing everything but dunk their head in. And some of them have to really step up to the plate, because the one difference is that they're earning credits. And I can't give them credits toward graduation if they're not completing the work and engaging in their portion of it also. So trying to help eliminate all those obstacles has really been our biggest key to kind of moving forward. And we've been utilizing like I said, our academic study hall teacher, and adding that 4 hours onto our English teacher that's half-time has been vital, very vital. But we've also looked at schedules, and we've had to trim off some classes. There's a few kids that are really struggling. We've had to, take off some electives and focus on the core classes to try to save some classes, knowing that they can earn back those credits at a later date. We're also part of the DMAC consortium, where you can do some credit recovery courses. So some classes can be dropped, and it's easier to do it in a credit recovery format versus the more instructional route that they're currently struggling with. We did get back, and I don't know, maybe Carrie knows the exact number, but I want to say it was well over a dozen or more, maybe closer to 15 that came back at the deadline. So we had a bunch come back that just realized either the mitigation things are working and things are going a lot better than they had planned, or that it's just too difficult to do it in the format they're doing. Unfortunately, when the rubber hits the road, they're going to have to do the work to get the credits. And so some of those kids, we've had some serious conversations about coming back. And we've been utilizing that Wednesday, with those individual sessions, booking up our academic study hall person pretty much all day to try to do some tutoring and some remediation. And, we're just continuing to work. We would like to get back as many of them as possible and, limit our remote learning numbers, because it is taxing and difficult for our teachers. It would be, a very difficult task without the Wednesdays. I know it looks different at the lower levels than it does the high school, but, trying to do all your planning and grading and for your on-site and your remote learning and record your lessons and do your feedback. And it's a lot. So the Wednesdays have been absolutely vital, and it's a ghost town in the building. I mean, teachers are in their rooms, their doors are closed, their meetings are going on. They're busy. And so I think that's kind of where we stand right now.
One thing I'd like to piggyback off of what Vic just said that I think is really important to know, at the high school, it might not be that they have more students in a section, in that grade level. Because they're teaching the same courses, but you're trying to teach something two different ways. And what you do on site might not be exactly what you're gonna do. So that's having to be created. So I think that's really important to remember that as to what that looks like for at different buildings. Oh,
Carrie,
yeah.
can I just go back to something that Tyler said? I think he was asking a question. As I sit here and think about it, I think I have a better answer for him. Tyler was asking if, I'm trying to leverage those non-certified staff to help. And Tyler, I did what, as kind of more being engaged with those kids. But what was happening was kids would have questions to that person about assignment specifics or deadlines that person didn't have the answer to and have to go to the teacher. And so all I did was put someone then in the middle as a middle person, as a go-between, and it just complicated things. So I think that's more of what you're asking, just for the general remote learners. And I did try that. It just didn't work out. So if they're doing what I found is, if the student is doing our remote learning, then it's really got to be that teacher that's engaging with that kid. Where I would utilize other people more is if we offloaded them into a third-party program, and then I could have someone else handle that and the teacher wouldn't have to. I think that answers your question a little bit more. I don't know that I addressed it the first time, so.
No, I think that's all good. And, and it's just getting to are we addressing some of those key challenges that came out in this survey?
And the other thing that's kind of been complicated for us is that, we have two of the largest classes that have ever gone through Gilbert. They're over 140 each, in comparison to a graduating class of 111 last year. So we've got two classes of 140, one of 130, and another one that's pushing 130. So our building has had the most students it's ever had in the history of Gilbert High School. And so there's a lot of students here. And so our teachers are feeling a little bit of the pressure, but they're settling in. They're doing a lot better. The technology has come a long ways, and their comfort with the technology. And I think they're getting more into their routines of how they do things. And I feel like they're getting to be a better place. Obviously, it's still very stressful, and it's still a ton of work. And it's a lot different work than they've ever done before, because you're teaching the same concept, but you're teaching it two different ways, because you may not be able to do the same things in the classroom as you're doing with the remote learners. The other big portion that's been hard for us is to get to make sure families understand that, you need to communicate with us if you're struggling. And we've had several families where, the kid's struggling and they haven't reached out to the teacher or haven't responded to emails or anything. And we don't know what the problem is unless you let us know. And so, trying to make those connections with those families to let us know. And this is how we're going to have to communicate, is either through phone or through email, because you're not here. And so we need to know what those problems are and to try to problem solve those in order to get you back on track. But let's not look away from the fact, though, that a large chunk of our kids are really doing very well with it.
Tyler, did you have a comment? Oh, sorry, I thought you had your hand up, Tyler.
Nick, at the high school, kind of the same question I had at the elementary, which I think Carrie gave me my answer, but does the remote learners ever fall to a level where we just can't justify, and I get the every student every day, but we wouldn't be able to justify when we look at the other 126 kids that are in the classroom to say, we really just need to outsource this, because then we can have a lot more normalcy with regard to our routines, and now we're not taxing our teachers to put together both types of curriculum. And then also is the first part is you get through this a year, and then next year, if we're in the same boat, then it doesn't look as tough, because we've got a lot of the groundwork done as to what that online learning looks like. And so question for you, Vic, would be is at what point did that remote learners get to be, if we cut all those numbers in half, do you change anything, or would we be in the same kind of boat when we think about the spring semester?
I think if you cut our numbers in half, we're still in the same boat. We're still teaching both ways. There's positives and negatives to the outsourcing it. Some programs are better than others. The kids that are struggling in a live session are going to struggle, I would say, more in an outsourcing situation, because they're really watching videos and they're getting really no live interaction at all. But that's the most extreme cases of the kids that aren't engaging at all. I would say though, John, you got to understand that if we roll into this next year, our teachers have already now built a ship that they can fly a little better next year. And so if we were in this shape, they have lessons recorded, they have a plan, they kind of know how they did it the year before. So I think it could be a little better in year 2. And actually that, they should be a little further along with their comfort level with technology and how they integrate their lessons and how they change their lessons. But cutting it in half really isn't going to do anything any different. They're still going to be teaching in 2 environments. The biggest thing is it's very taxing to chase the kids that aren't engaging. That's the part that's been the hardest is, they're trying to keep these kids going and some of them just really aren't engaging as well as they should, for a variety of reasons. You don't always know what's going on in the home or this or that, but I think having those meetings and things with the families to try to determine what you can do to help mitigate some of their issues that they're struggling with, is key. But unless you're going to outsource everything, which I don't know if I'm totally in favor of outsourcing everything, because I think we do put out a good product here, and I think we're all very proud of our teachers and the work that they do. And that's just my thought. I don't think it would help by cutting it in half.
Okay, no, those are good observations, Vic. And I just wanted your perspective on that. And then the other thing is there a certain level of productivity for these students that are struggling if we can make school mandatory on Wednesdays?
I was just gonna ask the exact same question.
Well, and that's what we've been doing is we've been telling you got to come in, and we've got 6 or 8 of them coming in already. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't know if we can make it mandatory in the situation we're in. They've chosen an exemption due to COVID, and some of them were really uncomfortable coming in for just a meeting. So trying to use the Wednesdays is something I think we jumped on right away and have tried. We recommend it, and most of the families will jump on it because they're pretty excited to get some extra attention and have it in an environment that is less congested on a Wednesday when there's only just 1 or 2 teachers in the room with just a handful of kids. So, I think if we were to put something in place like that, it would need to have some teeth to it. And I think that Wednesday definitely makes a difference for those kids that take advantage of it.
Oh, thanks for your feedback.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments for high school? We can go to the next slide, which is the last slide. Okay, there's just this quote from Maya Angelou: you can't use up creativity, the more you use, the more you have. I think we just have to remember that we are learning something new here. And I don't know that there's a right way or a wrong way, but what we do know is what we believe is right for our kids. And that's where all of these decisions are coming from. So we have not, we are constantly for example, at every administrator meeting, we are going through what's working. Okay, what are we struggling with? Okay, what can we do about that? So what are those recommendations or those considerations, those big chunks that we're talking about now, as we move forward? Being aware of time for teachers right now, because they are doing 2 different things for one outcome. Those remote Wednesdays, I know that there could be a look from the outside looking in, like, why do you need those? They are vital to making this work. And as long as we have remote learning, I personally don't see how, and mitigation and all these parts and pieces, remote Wednesday has got to go along with it. Now, one thing to think about with the remote Wednesday, just a kind of little caveat, that is a learning expectation day for our students. Our students, all students, okay, on up, have learning that is required for those days. We are really helping support. How does that look as they get older? What does it look like when I have to take that initiative for my learning for that day? So some of the things that we know that people are struggling with, even as adults, I think I've said that, I've had that happen to me. We're helping support that for kids now in a small way. So that can be a positive for this. And then really looking at the nuances across the district of what does that support for our struggling learners look like? We have a really good plan for our on-site kids, and we have. Now we're developing that as how that works for our remote kids. And there's things that can be the same across the district, and there's things that can't. But, for example, the bringing kids in on Wednesdays. I mean, one, I think it might have been Mike, I can't remember, it was Mike or Vic shared it at an admin meeting. It's like, oh my gosh, Amy's like, oh my gosh, I'm jumping on that. That if we have to be communicating as a district, and what is our framework that we're working from, and then allowing those nuances across buildings of what's needed there. So that's kind of where we are right now. Any questions, any thoughts?
Just got a quick question. If you compare this year to any other year, are we on the same track from a curriculum standpoint where we're sitting throughout all grades? I mean, are we a little behind? Are we right on track?
Do you mean like with student learning?
You got it.
You know, one thing that's really interesting when you ask that question, Andrew, is we have for example, our early literacy testing, which is what we call our fast testing. One thing that we noticed about our overall scores, we didn't see this big chunk of kids at the at-risk category. What we noticed is maybe some of those high, very high, have bumped down to the high average. But the ones that were here kind of maintained that. We saw the same thing at the middle school level with our NWEA testing that we gave. We decided to give that earlier so that we have some data, some big data that we didn't have because we didn't take assessments and all that other stuff. Anyway, same thing. So what do we know from that? Well, do I think that those kids that were here, are they gonna bump back up here? More than likely they probably will, because they're pretty much very high achievers. But it was good to see that this group has maintained, and that we're gonna continue to push them and do all that we've been doing in the past. So that's a good question.
Yeah,
Thank you for asking that.
wondering.
That's a really good question.
My only question, and it's just kind of something to think about. I don't think there's an answer for it tonight, but it would be good to understand. I heard several of the administrators say, as soon as we know, we can do some planning, and so it'll be very good to learn what that next date should be for the second semester.
And we were
for us making a decision about this.
I think we need, my hope would be this: we come in November with just a little update, not this to this degree. And then when are we going to act, how are we going, what is our plan moving forward, so that by the December meeting, we've got some numbers for you. And then the other thing is, if we, depending on where we are with COVID, if we're continuing this on, are we gonna say, if you say this semester, you're just in for the second semester? And we've been very open, and I mean, it's parent choice. You could be for multitudes of reasons. Would we want at all consider maybe narrowing that for a strict medical reason? With a written medical reason. I don't know. I'm just throwing, these are just things that we've talked about on that as well. So I think just to put that on the table.
I got a couple of things. I very good information from everybody, and I appreciate everybody's hard work. We really have to dial down and figure out what the causes of these kids that are having trouble, because we can't throw money at something if that's not what we need to do. Well, so somehow between the 24 province or 24 situations we need to figure out if it's internet connection, if it's whatever the reasons are. We need to see if there's a common strength. And even if there isn't, you guys need to know more than we do. And then remote Wednesdays. I think us as a board, if the administration, you guys come back with those Wednesdays, we're gonna give. So I don't think that's a thing to worry about. I think you guys have done a nice job. I think from your guys' standpoint, I think you should demand at the next meeting that we make a commitment on the next semester. I don't think you can wait until December, even if it's a special meeting, because really that doesn't give us very much time, unless you want to spend all your break. Like you did this summer.
No, I don't think any of us want to do that.
And I don't want you to either. So we're willing to work with you, but I think you have to demand some stuff from us.
Okay, thank you.
And then the other thing is, I don't know about this third party deal. One of the administrators said, I think it was Vic, said we put out a pretty good product.
That's my worry, John.
Yeah, Yeah, and then the last thing I want to tell you is we have some kids that aren't coming to school because of reasons that they can't come because of they have a situation in their family that is, they can't get sick. So we always have to remember that sometimes the kids aren't coming because they can't. Not because they don't want to, not because the parents don't want to, because they can't. And I don't ever want to forget that. If we have two kids sitting out there and they can't come, that's the way it is. So we need to respect all those. And I appreciate everything you guys have done. And I would tell you, the administrators, expect a lot out of us. And we're here with you.
I was gonna, Gail, will you upload that, not right now, but that presentation into the Dropbox, and then they have access to all those numbers?
Yeah, what is it nice?
Yeah, well, I
No,
just wanted to be able to present it so that that's where we were coming from.
We have, thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
Really informative. We have a couple more things here on the oral reports, and then I know this is going a little bit longer. We have a shorter agenda on the back end, but if we need to take a break, please speak up. The next item that we have.
Hey, Deb.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't speak up. No, I just wanted to say, I agree with Jeff. We're very proud of our district and we really appreciate everything you're doing. I would encourage you to think through what's the timing for when we're going to get the numbers for next spring and the plan. Because I think I heard from some of you, well, it'd be nice to know the numbers in order to know what the plan is. But our assumption through all of this is we're doing the best we can do. And in the spring semester, we want to do even better. So whatever you need in order to make that plan, and if it's the numbers, then I agree with Jeff, we need to do it sooner rather than later. So not for tonight to figure all that out, but let's be thinking about getting to that sooner so that we can plan and you can ask for the board, what do we need to do to be even better in the spring? And I think our assumption has to be it's going to be similar to what we're doing this fall as far as COVID mitigation and numbers, and potentially maybe less remote, but you've got to make some of those assumptions or get the actual numbers.
Yeah. And I think we'll talk about that for the November meeting as well, just to talk about what we do. Thank you, Kevin. Okay, moving on to the next one we have on the oral reports. Consider
What did we extend those contracts on those subs for the year or just this semester? And that's might be something you guys want to look at. Continue.
Yeah, we have that down that we need to discuss that.
Okay.
So we can bring it to.
Okay, sorry.
I was
gonna forget it. Hell, I was gonna say it. I forgot about the time Tyler got done and we did that. So.
No, you're absolutely fine. That's an excellent one. Okay, I'm gonna slide on into this next one. Consider and approve the district calendar change. That we have a calendar that's posted that we approved earlier.
Right.
That lists that, I believe it lists Thursday, November 19th as an early out.
Right.
Today.
The three buildings have early outs. It's elementary, intermediate, and middle school. And when we were talking about, there's a lot of things going on with this COVID and things like that. One of the things that Dick talked about was what would be the possibility of going ahead and doing the full day with the high school. And you may say, well, you know, how does that look? What we have is we have a small number that actually ride the route bus. So we've just bought a new route scheduling software. And what we'd like to do is to have your permission to go ahead and for the high school, have that be a full day. I think that helps them as far as when they're looking at the block. Vic, do you want to add anything, or Cindy, do you want to add anything to that?
No, we would normally have had PD there, and I would love to have more time with kids. I mean, I feel like we're trying to play catch up and to have half a day of school. I want kids in the building. I want kids there all day, and I think it's a good thing to do. I know the other buildings have conferences and things going on, and I would just as soon us roll right through our normal week. It does match up really well with our block because we'll have our odd and our even days, so we don't get offset and have to run some kind of goofy schedule. But I think more time with the kids is just vital.
And is this just before Thanksgiving or whatever?
It's close.
It's like a week before. I think it's Lindsay touched on this with our transportation. It'll figure out how many routes we need and that to run that third route in the afternoon, but.
We're not running it for hundreds of kids. It's a small group of kids and we should be able to do it just like you're saying, Gary.
And the reason we're
You've
not
never-
doing this for all buildings is because of conferences.
Correct. They're in conference.
Yeah, the
That's-
other
that's what
buildings
I
get
got,
out at 12:30 to do their conferences,
Yeah, 'cause
to accommodate families that come after them.
Okay,
So
and do
yours-
you need, do you need us to?
So you have to roll buses again then at 3:30.
Small number of buses.
Like maybe
All right.
two.
Two.
Oh, okay, all right.
Not all 12.
I was trying to put the number 2 for John. 'Cause I know stuff.
I know, yeah.
Okay,
I move to approve.
is there
full
Second,
classes
second.
for high school on November 19th.
Second.
Okay, okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So that motion passes. Moving on to the next one, announcements and celebrations.
Any one of the administrators, I guess, here or there, do you have anything that you want to add for announcements or celebrations?
I would like to just a general shout out to the district because I think you can see that our mitigation factors are working. I mean, things are going well. If you look at surrounding districts and compare some of our numbers to other district numbers that aren't doing some of the same things we're doing or districts across the state, I think we're doing an outstanding job. The board has done a great job of guiding us this direction. Our return to learn committees did a great job building an infrastructure. Our mitigation policies and procedures that we've been following and holding ourselves accountable to are making a huge difference. And so, I think none of us would have guessed that things have gone as smoothly as they would. There was a lot of worries going into that first week of school. And I think that's a great celebration. We're getting into the playoff system for volleyball and football and cross country are all making it to the end of their season. So we're super excited about, the playoffs for football and volleyball and the cross country as districts next week. And so we're so excited to have had sports. It's been a great uplifting thing for our kids to be involved in activities and get our fine arts involved in the marching band and things. And then looking at our plans for, meeting as a team and talking about concerts and things. And I just give a big shout out to the district and their efforts and the administrative team and our Ashley and Laura and everybody that's been involved in kind of keeping the wheels on the bus actually rolling down the road. So.
And I want to echo Nick's comments, but I also want to kind of piggyback on the students. I keep hearing from all the staff how great the students are doing through all this. And without their cooperation, none of this would be possible. So our numbers look great. And again, admin staff are doing great. I think our students are doing just as great as I would ever expect. So,
They're kind of making it look easy in a way, but it's not.
no.
And anybody who wears a mask all day long knows it's not easy, but very much appreciated and not going unnoticed.
I would just like to add, we've had a number of different people in our district, for example, I'm going to use the first food service auditor person that came in. And people are in awe of what our mitigation, what the links that we're going to. And with our plexiglass, I think Vic said, some people are doing nothing. Yeah. And I think it's important to know that I think it stands behind who we are and what we believe is the right thing to do. And I don't know, I think I would hold up everything we're doing about just about any district in the state of the things that we're doing. And it is possible. I'm not saying it's not hard work. It's extremely hard work, but it's the right work. So thanks for supporting us in that.
No, I'm just glad we got out and bought that plexiglass. Next item is board reports. I don't know that there's anything from a board member, but of course that virtual.
That wanted to register.
Yeah, so we've got a virtual convention coming up in November. Moving on to new business. Before we do that, is everybody okay? Do we need to take any kind of break? We're ready to go? Okay. New business. Do we have Adam or Sam on? No, we don't. Okay. First item up is construction. So there's two construction updates. One was a change request and one was a change order. They are not online to discuss.
One's a credit and one's for the damage from the storm.
Yeah.
And what we're doing with that damage to the storm is they put that together, they were turning it over to our adjuster and they're seeing where we go with it.
Okay.
You need that approved through a motion then.
Yeah, I think that is listed as
I
a
believe so.
Yeah.
consider.
I'll make a motion to approve those, right?
to approve change requests
Yep,
010
yep, we'll go.
and change order.
Yep. Second.
Any further discussion on that? I can't see Tyler, so I'm hoping if he's, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, next item is 2021 certified enrollment.
Oh, okay, let's go back.
Okay, back it up.
We have a number 1 for the change request,
Yes,
and then the 2 was a change order. Was that a combined?
Got the
yes,
combo.
it was a combined.
Yeah, it's on both.
We married them together.
Mr. Efficiency over there.
Okay.
But they don't amount to anything. They're one's a credit, one's a storm damage. That's
Yes.
Sure, it's paying for one, and we're not paying for the other ones. How am I doing, John? You're doing fine. Thank you.
Okay,
You got rid of all that other wild talk and not worried about budgets.
yeah, okay. So the 2021 certified enrollment. Oh, here it is. Can you see that from?
Yep, it was in the package.
Yes. Any questions or?
So,
It doesn't need approved, but basically it's, line 7 is the funding number. So,
Okay.
with the movement of everything, I added a lot of information in there. You can see the movement of kids that went in and, mainly the homeschooling, but it's parents' choice. And that's just, the outcome of parents' choice. So, and, a few things that, we're not in the homeschool, like where we get funding for some homeschool, but homeschool IPI means they don't use any of our services, and we have 13 that's not even on here. They don't even have to report, we don't keep track of them. And we had 13 of those, and then the other one is, we had 3 that transferred to a private school during this time, and of course, they're not gonna show up any. Now, we could assume that maybe those would have been in our numbers, maybe, but with COVID, that's just, a reflection of possibly the times we're in. Right? So
we've got some students that were either open enrolling or had gone but are coming back, and it's just a lot of movement. It's hard to say if this is just a blip or what next year will look like.
yes.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? You don't tell me, I'm Tyler.
So
I can't see. I'm sorry.
So this kind of leads us into the next, because of this drop in funding, we need to, with the cost related to COVID and the drop in our funding, we were estimating our 5-year projection to be on a flat enrollment. And so I talked to Deb. Deb was on a conversation with Lindsay and I on Friday, and we talked to, had a conference call with Travis with Piper Jaffray, and we feel like we need to get together and have a work session to revisit our 5-year projection because things have changed. So, and it's a big enough that we should, figure out, okay, let's meet, let's set some new goals and visit on, our next 5 years, because we can't use the same projections that we thought we were going to have.
It feels like kind of what we were going to be. We were really trying to be very conservative, almost like we're saying. It doesn't look so conservative anymore. So we just want to
Weren't they
revisit.
telling us the dip was coming last year? I remember them saying like the next 3 years, they were saying. So the thing is, almost they projected that -1, almost positive say -1 this year.
Right.
-2 or 3 next year, and then similar, and then it's gonna start to come back, is what they said.
Because the kids were already born, so just
Yeah.
COVID changed into that. Because the hole that's created is that 183,000 on the next slide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I just gotta have the car ahead of the horse.
Yeah. So basically, the line 7 is our total funding, and that's on the first page, and that's a -1563. So that's 112,000. Now, when you break it down, each line is representative. You have all these outside bubbles that come together into line 7 for a summary. So basically, if you break this down, we did go up 34 students, but they're not all weighted as one. And so when you break that down below, the 34 kids, we have additional 26 kids that are homeschooled and they're not out of one. So if they were all attending and it was a normal year, you know, the difference, the net difference is $93,000. Yeah. So then just gives you a little bit more detail going on. Then the other thing is, you know, our open enrollment. Our open enrollment dropped 33.3 kids open enrolled out. So, you know, for what's that do? This current budget, it reduces our expenditures, but our revenue doesn't come until next year. And so it's going to hit 2 budget years, reduces our expenditures this year. It's going to reduce our revenue the next year, fiscal year 22. So that's a piece of the financial, the 5-year projection. And then most of them came from Ames. And then non-public attending our district also went down 14 students. And this basically will hit this year's budget because we won't get tuition in from those other schools. And so that'll reduce our revenue in the current year we're in.
That's not a year lag.
No. No. So that's just a tuition I bill in other school districts that we just won't see $99,000. So all those pieces come together for line 7, which is a negative 15 students. So I don't know if Boone County went up, Story County went down just in the resident of students. And this does affect state dollars. It's about $1,000 per student. But if we see growth in, you know, sales, you know, there's that will offset that. So when we go forward and doing the projections, we felt that we needed to revisit and set some, you know, some goals, and maybe, you know, a flat line is where we want to be. You know, maybe that's, you know, and just say, you know, it's COVID and we just get through it. But you will see how the numbers work together on different things. And then the most important thing on that 5-year projection is that everybody's on the same page when we go into those next steps for next year. Negotiation, all that ties together, planning. And then everybody's on the same page and we know what, you know, we know what we want to do to get to the end result.
Yeah, and you can see that that work session is tentatively set for just prior to our next board meeting. So instead of starting at 6, we would have a board session, a work session with Travis at 5.
And it will only be an hour.
And it will only be an hour. That's what we should do, just to revisit those and to just be deliberate about, is this where we're going to stay or are we going to make adjustments? Okay, so the next item on the agenda, we're good. Okay, the next item on the agenda is to the modified allowable growth and supplemental aid for negative special education balance for the 2019-20 school year.
We estimate and budget at a deficit of $500,000, and we came in at 507. So it's pretty dang close. In the world of special ed, that's pretty close to where we want it to be. So we asked for state aid and funding for that. And so that's what we're doing tonight, so we can pass on and we can get supplemental for that. And the other, okay, that's where we're at right now, so I'll just stop there.
So
Second.
Okay. So is there any discussion? Everybody okay? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion passes. The next one is that consider or approve the request for the modified supplemental aid for excess cost of providing English language learner.
The state allows us that in our English language learner, that we can give the amount that the state provides in their funding formula. If we go over, we could go back and ask for more authority. So that's what we're bringing. We spent $2,075 more than what we were given in that program. So it just gives us an opportunity to get that money back.
Yep.
So moved.
In motion.
Yeah, make motion to approve.
Okay. And
Second.
I think Jeff got that. Sorry, just by the hair you can there.
I got you.
Okay. Discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that is approved. Moving on to the last item on before the consent agenda, the financial report summary.
So I put in here information on a financial summary as of 6/30, so the end of the financial year. So the main thing I wanted to talk about is basically the solvency that we worked towards, and we ended up at 17.5 or 17.5%, and our goal was 12%. So on line step 9, you can see that here's a little bit of our history. Fiscal year 16, we're at 1.6, and we've made some strides by working and planning in that module and working. It was a tool to get us to where we wanted to be, and we exceeded our expectations of where we wanted to be. Now, so the other line is line 6, the amount over under. This is that sweet spot of where we have revenue and our expenditures are equal to that. We only spend the amount that we received in or our revenues is, and we came $31,000 under what our revenue was. So very, very close to being at 0, which is the sweet spot. So overall, extremely good year for us financially to get us to the direction of coming into 2021 and to for what we need to talk about for expenditures for this year and the changes that we may have. And so then the next thing I wanted to do is provide you with some detail, and that I included in a comparing fiscal year 19 to fiscal year 20. And I color coded some things to tell a story of just more detail of what's in the what's the line items that we were thinking, what were we going to spend? So mainly our salaries and benefits were right at where we anticipated, because we did we continued to pay our people. So our benefits, our target is 80%, and we were at 76.3% of our budget to be in salary and benefits, just very traditional where we are. And then I went down and highlighted some of the changes of, expenditures were more than anticipated than the year before. And then if there was a savings, and overall, the biggest savings was transportation. And that was basically because of fuel and our students, we didn't transport our students for activities. Plant and services, we had a reduction of, expenses in some areas, as in services, but supplies are extremely high because of mitigation. So I just kind of color coded just so you could spend and dive into it more. And, if there was a story to be told, I try to pull it out and color code it so it would tell you something more specific. But other than that, extremely good year on planning and our expenditures, in which we will need going into fiscal year 2021. So then going to 2021, where we're at, so this would be the 9/30 financials for the end of the semester. Not semester, excuse me, quarter. And so the very first thing that I wanted to point out is that the first thing I noticed when I was getting ready for the board meeting and realized I forgot to include our AEA support service general journal entry, and that didn't make the books, but it is in there for October, but it was not in there for September. So obviously that was a noticeable variance. And so I wanted to point that out. So the other thing, as we go through this budgeted annual revenues and expenditures, I need to spend more time on this now that our enrollment figures have came through and our open enrolled in and out. It definitely changes our revenues and expenditures. So I need to dive deeper and make some changes in the budget that we're reporting in the orange area. These numbers will be changing because I need to reflect our certified enrollment information that's new. And then the property taxes, I wanted to create a historical of, what we did not keep track of delinquent taxes on the revenue side. So I wanted to bring in on what did that look like in the past? And you can see 18, we did have a deficit. 19, it's pretty much, we collected $5,000 more than we, and so fiscal year 20, you can see that we were at a negative 54 for collection, but as of today, our September 30th, we've collected 22.26% of that negative. And then our COVID expenses, this is where we are as of 198,000 for the first quarter through September 30th. I did send out a scenario or a Google sheet to area schools and asked them to complete it. I only had response from one school, and that happened to be Ames. So we're sitting at 198. So Ames are at 222. Now I was hoping, I made the Google sheet very simple, and I told, so I was hoping to get a lot more people to complete it for me. So maybe they will. It's a very busy time, and I don't want to intrude on somebody's, give them one more thing to do. But I'm very simple. I just said, and I did formulas for them. A spreadsheet is basically put in all funds. I don't care. You don't have to spread, just put them together and get it. So I will share that with you as more information comes with surrounding schools. But Ames is the only one that did report.
Yeah, thanks, Gail.
When you send it out, did you send our information to them before they responded?
Ours is a line. So so we can see it. Yeah, so they can see ours. Yeah. So ours is, here it is.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and it goes across, and it'll just keep track, and it just automatically. So, yep. So everybody we share Google Sheets.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yeah, you're not asking for.
No, but
Pretty basic.
yeah.
Maybe they don't have it all.
And they could be, it depends on for whatever reason. But one thing I did touch on, let's go back to June 30th. I did mention in here, we did not overexpend our published budget. The auditors helped me make a journal entry and we did a prepaid expense. So we were within our one time I thought we were going to overspend because they pulled out the principal and interest on June 30th and it wasn't payable to July 1st. That was not an issue. I forgot to mention that to you. And so then going forward into, so COVID expenses, everything else is pretty much on target, but as we do go forward for planning, our COVID expenses are higher than normal, and so we will need to use that in our planning module and plug in as much as we can realize and know. And then, but the plus side is that we are at a 17%. But we know that with history, once you dig into that, it doesn't last as long. It goes much faster. So
Takes a
we'll
long
just
time to go
have
up.
to, and that. So we just need to be mindful of that, and as we set our goals and where we want to be. It's just a bump in the road right now, and as we say, it's COVID, and we have to deal with it though, and the reality of dealing with that. So.
Question, Gail?
Yes.
I just looked back and last month, I really appreciate these numbers, especially the COVID. Last month, it looked like it was 142. So we're tracking 57,000 per month. Would we expect that to be the run rate going forward? Most of these are going to continue on a monthly basis.
Yes, we are having more and more salaries now. So salaries are going to be a monthly expense. Supplies should be slowing down. And so now it's going to be more or less salaries going forward.
What would you ballpark those to be with current personnel?
4 substitute janitors, that kind of what's the salaries.
Yeah, it's like,
The sub.
yeah,
4
so,
substitute janitors.
yeah, but then along with that is also I'm coding, like if staff is gone,
Oh,
I'm coding their substitute to COVID if they are COVID.
So why wouldn't you do it the other way? So if you got somebody gone, why wouldn't you take one of your 4 and now you only got 3 that day? That's the way I would do it. I don't think it's fair to do it the other way.
Well, not all of our staff that's gone on COVID are teachers.
Right.
So if they're gone for COVID, we have to track, because I don't know if you know that COVID leave is gonna be on W-2s. And so we have to track that. And so we're tracking that. And then also we want to track it as an expense because they are actually home because of COVID. And it could be an associate, it could be, you know, a food service, it could be anything. But we need to track that, and there's an expense to it, because if for some reason we have federal dollars coming through, we already have it. Now,
Is that why you're doing it this way?
yes, yeah. And I'm for, I guess not everybody. But, as I say that, they have to fill out the forms for COVID, and some don't. You know, so if they go through the work of filling out the federal forms for COVID, then I code it to COVID. Some of them say, you know what, I'm just going to use my sick leave. I don't code it to COVID because they're not using COVID leave. So, and they all get, you know, their 10 days. And that's what, now that exhausts December 31st.
I think Tyler's statement though, I don't think our burn rate is 57 grand. If you figure it out that way. I think you could look back at it, we probably got 4 people gone a day that were slick on subs. And so really what it is, we're talking about 2 janitors. And then you just had 2 quits, so now we're slick again.
Well, but only to the extent that you had consistently 4 people are out on COVID. If you don't, then it's
But we always got
away.
what they let me do is we've always have people gone. We always have subs every day.
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah, so that's the only reason I see.
Yeah, okay, well, I didn't.
Yeah. So, yeah, so Tyler, does that make sense? The burn rate's not gonna be 57 grand, real dollars.
Yep.
Okay.
Just trying to project forward, you know, with some assumptions.
No, I get what you're saying.
I mean, it's looking like 700,000 to 800,000 over the year if all of this is continued to be the run rate, which, like you said, yeah, we just got to deal with that.
So I think I have everything. What we've been hearing a little bit about the nutrition program, what we hear is that the federal has made a commitment to the end of the year. It's a state that's not on board yet. So that's working out really, really nicely. We submitted a claim for $38,000.
So it's stated there, the kids sign up for it, but they don't pick them up. That's some of the
on the
food pushback. I think if they sign up for it, you know, you can get their name and then you charge their account. You can't make the product and then sit there and throw it in the garbage because they didn't come and get it. We did our part. You know, we would get in trouble if they put their name down there and we didn't have the lunch ready. So
I'll have to.
So I don't know, maybe Lindsay, you guys can maybe look at that. And especially if it's gonna be a federal program anyway.
And we haven't gotten approval yet from USDA on that.
Right.
Is that because I've seen?
Yeah, we have through December, the end of December,
I was just saying,
but not for the rest of the year.
Yeah, but regardless, you can't sign up for something
And
now
just
and then
take
stick it to us. That's not.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Is there any items that anybody would like to pull out and discuss? Okay.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
By Tyler. Any other discussion? No. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, consent agenda. All right. Item number 8. Mr. Beecher sent out a message that he is retiring at the end of this year. Apparently 36 years. Has been quite a 36 years, and I can only imagine the stories you can tell. So I kind of look forward to celebrating that throughout the rest of the year. I've enjoyed working with you very much. We need to move on, though. This means we have to find a replacement. I believe looking at the timeline, I'm talking to Andrew a little bit about this. We would like to establish a work session coming up before the next board meeting in which the board can talk about maybe next steps, how we want to go about this. I would encourage the board members to maybe do some research if you can. I think that possibly I can reach out to Gail to see if there's resources available that we can, that can aid us in this search going forward. But I'm not sure that it's something that we would discuss tonight, but let's think about that, get our thoughts together about how we want this to look. And then we will get together and have a work session. I know this is kind of on the spot here, but are we interested in trying to set a date today for that? My calendar's pretty open for the next, I don't know. Is there interest in doing that now, or should we?
With the goal, what week would you be, what week are you?
I think we need a couple of weeks to gather information.
I'd say 26th, maybe.
Shoot
Is
for
that what's
It's
the
the week
date?
of the 26th.
yeah, like 6 o'clock or.
Yeah. Is that
Might
Monday?
get earlier.
Good.
I can
How
go.
much time do we need to get some information?
Do you mean?
No, I
earlier
mean,
in the
during
day?
the day.
Oh, in the day.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. Let me do it tomorrow or Monday. I got a lot of work.
Yeah.
26 works for me.
I agree.
Is that the date? Is that a Monday?
Monday,
Yeah.
Monday.
26th Monday. You want to do like 5 o'clock? 5 o'clock, Tyler?
That works.
Okay. November 26th. October. Oh, yeah.
October 26th, 5 o'clock.
Thanksgiving? Okay. October 26th at 5 o'clock. The other items we have on the calendar, coming up, October Board Policy Committee meeting. That is sure to be exciting. And I will reach out to Andrew and Lindsay, and we will get that set up, and we will notify everyone about that. Otherwise, our next board meeting is November 9th. That'll be our annual board meeting. And we will start at 5 for our work session with Travis. And then, and so we can go through the financial review, et cetera, with him. And then our board meeting will be at 9. At 6. I'm sorry, at 6. On the 9th at 6.
Say that again, you got me lost.
It's on
Okay,
the
so
sheet.
our next board meeting is November 9th.
I knew.
Oh,
You know, when you get it.
okay.
I got you.
Give
I
you a
don't want to
hard
sit
time.
by, I don't want to sit by.
Right. Travis is kind of what he's gonna present.
Okay. That is, usually people are knocking down the walls with this, our next motion.
To adjourn, if you're gonna do.
Did we have, I'm sorry. You guys are talking about Travis. how we-
Yeah, we're gonna try to get some information out
Prior.
before Monday.
Oh, gotcha,
Yeah, so again, questions.
gotcha.
I move to adjourn.
Oh, you beat me.
All those in favor?
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Yeah, we better let him.